man, Matt George,
Yeah.
ABC 10 and the Locked On Kings podcast. Matty Ice, what's up, man?
Becky Studio. I had to drop by.
Love it, man. That not only do we get you in the studio, we get you for an extended conversation here to talk basketball, talk Kings, talk Disney movies, talk PlayStations.
Now we're talking.
All of that good stuff. Before we get to the Kings and some of the off-season content, one thing that we talked about, we didn't talk about as in-depthly as we did some of the things going on with the Celtics and Cavs. Dallas is one win away from another conference finals. One thing we did talk about was this team is different than they were in January. I don't know what they are. And to laminate something Casey said earlier, I don't know where this team is going in like a year. But right now, they're playing great basketball.
Yeah, I mean, they're a picture-perfect example of recognizing what their weakness is outside of the very, very top. Because Luka's Luka, Kyrie's Kyrie. You're just going to live with whatever those two guys do for you, right? Like, and those guys can both do a tremendous amount for you, to where I couldn't imagine being a defender and game planning to try and stop the Dallas Mavericks. And I have a night where I hold Luka Dončić to 25, and like holding Luka to 25 is holding Luka to 25. And then Kyrie goes for like 32. It's like, what am I do? And then both of those guys can go for 40 at any given time as well. Plus the supporting cast of characters. But I mean, Dallas, it's kind of a painful example for us here in Sacramento with how the trade deadline can completely change your season. But Dallas was a completely different basketball team after the trade deadline. Their top stayed the exact same. For the most part, their roster stayed the exact same, but they had a glaring issue and they went out and they addressed it and they did what needed to be done short term to address it. And they're reaping the rewards of they're about to knock off the number 1 seed and have a good chance to make it to the NBA Finals. I don't think I'd pick them to win it necessarily, but I would never be a team going, I want to face the Dallas Mavericks in a best of 7 series. Why would you? Because they've shown that they can beat you defensively, and they've got two guys that if they have to carry you on their back for a game, they can do it at the same time, or one can take the night off and the other will do it for them. Like, that's what's crazy about this Dallas team, and I give them full credit because the first 2 times the Kings played the Mavericks, they rolled them. Dallas was not good because Dallas could not hang defensively with what the Sacramento Kings were trying to do. And that was the Kings at a B-level offense compared to last season. And now look where they are because they addressed what they needed to do. Take notes, Monty.
And look, we get our jokes off or whatever, but we also got to stay consistent, and we got to salute Jason Kidd and the job that he's done.
For sure.
Any other time a team is doing good, we salute the coach or whatever. It's got to be the same with Jason Kidd.
Still going to get mine.
Oh, no, the jokes are still
okay. I just want to make sure.
No, that's not.
I give credit, but I'm still going to get my jokes
The jokes
off.
are still happening. They're going to live for the end of time. But he's done a good job, man. He's found a formula with this team. And for whatever reason, I feel him and Nico might have worked together with revamping that roster. Because remember, they got Grant Williams and thought they did something in the offseason. And they pivoted off of that real quick, saying, man, this isn't it. This isn't working. And got some guys in here that they thought would work for them. So, I hate the Mavericks, but I'm not a hater. They've done a great job in turning their season around.
I think there's just a good sense of buy-in with that team right now as well, because that report came out of that anonymous executive, whatever, that the team is happier to play when Luka Dončić is out of the game because they can touch the basketball or stuff. I feel like only stuff like that comes out when you're trying to find a reason to cut a team's legs out from underneath them when they're shining. Because on the floor, it shows the exact opposite. Now, I know Luka has the ball in his hands. Basically, it's crazy that Kyrie played with LeBron James and Luka somehow finds a way to take the ball out of Kyrie's hands more than LeBron ever did, which is crazy to think about. But it's not done in a way that's like, give me the ball, Kyrie, and get out of my way. It's like, I'm the guy. A lot of this runs through me. Kyrie, you're definitely a part of it. Everybody else is a part of it. I'm still going to get mine, going to get my assists, going to get my rebounds and things like that. But you don't need only me, all the time. And that's how my focus has kind of changed this playoffs. Is in the past, I would have said Luka Dončić has to be the greatest player in the league if the Dallas Mavericks are going to win a championship.
Yeah.
He still has to be really, really close, but Luka Dončić can be really, really, really good, and that team is good enough around him to win enough games to have a shot.
Well, part of Luka being really, really good too in some cases is pulling back. And that didn't need to be the case last night. But you go back a couple of nights ago, it's like he doesn't do it very often. I think I feel like he was 7 of 17. That's the number that's standing out in my head. And they wound up winning that game.
Right.
And that is an example of him being great. Like, there's growth in Luka Dončić. We questioned now a game. That's great. We questioned whether Luka can play like that for an extended period of time. Can Luka adjust the way that he plays to make his team better? And I think there have been a handful of examples this postseason that show maybe he can. Now, can he do it long-term for long-term success? I'm not sure. But this is the first time where I'm like, yeah, maybe he actually can do it.
I think a breakthrough moment for Luka too was he had a quote. I can't remember what loss it was or what game it was, but he basically said, like, I'm letting Kyrie down. I got to help Kyrie more. Like, I thought that was a very transparent moment from Luka. It's the right thing to say, but it's from a person that I wouldn't expect to say it. And very similar way, like Anthony Edwards has received a ton of praise for after, what was it, game 3 or whatever game it was. And he immediately in the locker room, first thing he said was like, that's on me. I didn't play well enough. Like, I didn't bring the right.
Yeah, scored 44
tonight.
the next night.
Yeah, exactly. But
like
you have this, still, lack of a better term and not said disrespectfully, you have this kid in the league who's still very in the early stages, who not only has taken the mantle of the leader on this team with veterans on it, but also is wearing a Michael Jordan-esque shadow at this point. And he's the first guy stepping to the camera with all the personality that he has and going, yeah, it was because of me tonight that we lost. Like, and people praised Ant for that, and rightfully so. I thought Luka kind of did a lot of the same things. Like, man, I mean, I know he's got his reputation for complaining. I'll always get my jokes off about Luka as well. But for Luka to step to the podium and say, man, I am the leader. I am the guy on this team, but I'm not helping Kyrie enough. Yeah. I thought that was pretty telling.
Speaking of, did you see what he said last night about the officials?
Oh boy.
No, he said I have to, like, I made an effort tonight to not do that. Like, I have to stop talking to the officials during the game.
Yes,
like,
please.
It is like, it's not going to change anything, and I have to stop doing that. And I guess it was a conscious effort for him to not address the officials the way that he normally does.
I mean, I'll call cap on that a little bit. It definitely does change things. He's officiated very differently than a lot of people in the league. And his complaining has bought him a lot, but he still does it too much.
Did anybody catch at the tail end of the game where SGA is going to the basket, Luka bumps him and fouls him, they call a foul, and Luka's like, hey, review that. And they're like, all right, Luka, we'll review it. Clearly just bumps the hell out of SGA. No surprise, wasn't overturned. It's like, yo, what are we doing? You just lean your I don't even know why they agreed to that, but I know I'm pretty harsh on Luka on here a lot, right? I'm pretty in the frustrations that I have with them. They're not going to change after one game.
Sure.
But number one, I do think he is one of the great talents we've seen in this league ever already. And number two, and I've been consistent with saying this, Dame, I was like, Luka seems like a good guy. Like, he don't seem like a bad guy.
Well, he called Kyle Mountain.
Well, that was uncalled for. No, that was really it. Yeah, nerd.
You didn't hear that story?
Oh
yeah, he called Kyle Manson out his name. Kyle, in his 49er boys, the Nick Wagner and Chris Biederman were sitting courtside, like feet on the court, courtside.
I remember
for Warriors.
Sit down, Kyle. Put your hand down.
Yeah, 49 for Warriors versus Mavericks.
Yeah.
And there was some sort of review and Kyle and Luka were by each other, and Kyle said something, and it had something to do with the call to Luka Dončić, and Luka called him out his name.
Like, knew his name.
No, he called him out of his name. He called him the.
Oh,
well, he called him the P word.
Oh,
he said, he just looked at him and said, P.
Is it wrong for me to be jealous of that as someone who may not have made 2 songs about the dude? I'm jealous of Kyle. How did Kyle get that before me?
No, you got to hang with Courtside Kyle or Courtside Ken.
Courtside, well, I didn't know Courtside. It's Courtside Kyle.
I do have a somewhat courtside experience, and I actually got the opportunity to tell Chris Webber about this when he was here in Sacramento. When I was my uncle was a season ticket holder. It's his fault that I got hooked into Kings basketball. And one day we're sitting there, and they like the dancers come through, and they're upgrading seats, and they give me, I was probably like 10 years old or something like that, give me a pair of these tickets where it was courtside, but not the traditional courtside. It was the baseline, but right at the corner of the Kings bench.
Mm-hmm.
So I couldn't tell you what happened in this game because I was staring at the bench the entire time because my hero, Mike Bibby, was right there. All these guys were right there. Chris comes out of the game, and I've told Pete Youngman this story too, and sits on the ground, and Pete Youngman starts stretching him out, and Chris leans back and is leaning against my legs as a kid, getting stretched out. And when he stood up, I was soaked because he was a sweaty, disgusting creature. But it was a unbelievable experience. That's my only courtside experience, is having Chris Webber lean on my legs while he got stretched out.
Did he say sorry or anything? Like, oh, sorry, little fella.
He didn't. He probably thought I was the chair. He didn't care. I was in his territory. I left that part out of the story when I told him, though. I just said, "Hey, Chris, I sat right next to you, and you leaned on me." And he was like, "Oh, cool. Shut up."
All right, weirdo.
You gonna ask me a question?
That's it. That certainly is an interesting courtside.
I mean, I'm not that's a courtside Matt story. That's courtside Matt.
I've been there once, and I got there through pity from a dancer as a child. You get there.
I only been there once too.
You get there balling out. You sat,
bro. Why? Don't do this.
Only one time have I been courtside. Stop.
Okay.
This guy.
Fine. I don't know why he lies to us.
It's all right.
It's fine.
We'll be at the top of the concourse doing work, and
that's what
I'm
we'll
sitting
be doing.
right there with you guys. I'm standing right next to D'Lo the entire time.
Yeah, first off, y'all never sit down. Sit down. Like
I can't. I don't like sitting down. I like to move around.
You're sitting now.
I just pace back and forth.
How do you do a
4-hour
radio
this.
show?
Well, I don't like. Well, I do a 4-hour, but what do I do for KSFM? I stand up.
You got a standing desk at home? I heard those things.
I had one, but because I'm not sitting there as much anymore, because we won't do any shows from home. I don't.
I'm told those things are life changing, but I'm not committing to that. Standing, no.
I think it just depends on how much you work at your desk. Like if I don't know. We talked a lot about Dallas today, as if OKC's just done, as if it's all over for Oklahoma City. I don't think that it is. I don't think it's all over for Oklahoma City or Minnesota.
This is just we're having a conversation type question, because I don't even know if I believe this, but does it say anything about OKC? Like, what's going on? Like, I don't think so. I think they need to figure out the Giddey situation.
Yeah.
I think he is expendable, and his lack of shooting, and it happens often. Last year it was Jared Vanderbilt, where these guys are like really good and people really covet them, and then you get into the playoffs and the other team doesn't have to guard them at all, and it kills everything that you want to do. And this year Giddey is this year's Jared Vanderbilt.
Yeah. I thinking about OKC could lose and be eliminated, and there's not a scenario where I'm not feeling great about OKC's future, because this is their first year, and look where they are. Like, first year in the playoffs, look where they are. Chet is really in year one. Shea is not going anywhere anytime soon. Even Giddey, like, if there's doubts about Giddey, which that might be the route that they go to upgrade, if that's what they decide, sure, I have my own doubts about Giddey too, but this is just year one for them. They're not going anywhere, and they're in a position with their treasure trove of assets that, like, a way to improve the number one seed is very, very possible and clear for them. Like, that's, if I'm OKC, of course I want to win right now, and of course I'm going to be disappointed to lose, especially to the fifth seed Dallas Mavericks. Like, I'm going to feel like, oh crap, that doesn't necessarily feel good. But I think OKC fans and Thunder fans can go into this summer and this offseason going, well, we're going to be just fine. We're going to be back. And even if they decide to run everything back, and they get back in this position again, I expect them to be better next year in the playoffs than they are this year, just through development and natural progress. But I mean, that OKC is a team where in a blink of an eye, they can ship out a handful of assets, and suddenly the next biggest name is on that roster, and nobody's surprised by it. So they're just, I think OKC is in not just the best position in the NBA, maybe one of the best positions in professional sports, period. Of, you're really, really good, you're really, really young, and you have all the assets that you need to add whatever you want.
Like, the youngest team in the league or the youngest team in the playoffs? I mean, obviously one would mean the other.
I think they're the youngest team in playoff history to win like the number 1 seed and to make it this far.
Oh, it was one of those baseball stats where there were like 10 caveats
Yeah,
to
it
it.
was very young.
Yeah.
I remember reading that or saying something like that on the air when they made it to the first round period. They were the youngest number 1 seed in NBA history. I know that for sure, but I don't know about anything today.
Progress isn't promised.
Nah, and I keep thinking about what you said yesterday, and you're 100% right. We all just assume everybody else is going to get better, except for the Kings, right?
Yeah.
Like the Kings are going to regress, not only from last year, the 3 spot,
Mhm.
but now being a playing team, they're destined to fall behind everybody, and just
Mhm.
everybody's just going to get better. And I think like you, Matt, I think OKC is set up really, really well, but I mean, injuries or other people not sleeping on them and all this other stuff. I mean, there's no guarantee that they get back to the same. The West is just as hard for them as it is for everybody else.
All the things you used to diminish Sacramento a
Yeah.
year ago, you could do this with other basketball teams.
And I think like you
don't, but you could.
Forecasting injuries is always there's always the assumption of a team will perform their best, quote, if they stay healthy. But I think that would be the one thing I'd be afraid of most if I'm a Thunder fan or a member of the OKC Thunder is Chet Holmgren is obviously a massive part of what you're going to be doing going forward. And he is the build, and he already has the history of health issues. And he is a player that with his size and his length and the type of player that he is, injuries can hurt him a lot more than maybe they could hurt a guard who goes through the same kind of situation. So if I'm OKC, like there's fears of getting hurt, which they lose SGA for a good portion of the season. Of course, that's going to have a massive impact on them. But if Chet Holmgren is your guy going forward and your SGA Chet Holmgren core is the core that you think you can win multiple titles with, there's always going to be, for me, just naturally with who Chet is, there's always going to be a concern of my franchise could dip with the health of my star center.
Watching this conference shake out over the next handful of years will be interesting because you think Oklahoma City is good, right? You think that Minnesota is good. You know Denver's good. But I feel like there are elements to Minnesota that's you talk about your confidence in Oklahoma City. I don't have that same confidence in Minnesota.
I agree.
I have confidence in Minnesota, but I don't have that same confidence. I look at them like, yeah, I could see a couple of things. Maybe it doesn't work out. It's not Anthony Edwards. It's not Ant-Man. It's not Anthony Edwards. I don't see, but there's a few things that I wonder if this drops down a little bit.
What do you think is more likely with the West? That it stays this way for a long, long time with the parity of the league and how many teams are super, super talented and loaded with talent, or that it crashes completely? Like, what do you think is more likely? Because
stays the way it is.
I feel the same way, but there's just so much talent and it's at such a high level that what happens if the next generation just isn't as good? And I just wonder. I think
we always worry about that.
Well, this is something that I talked about a couple weeks ago, that it was a little tongue in cheek, right? Like I was being a little facetious, but there's a little truth to it. They might need to get rid of conferences, at least for playoffs. I was one of the people who 20 years ago, when the West was so dominant and the New Jersey Nets were coming out of these,
right?
I was like, nah, man. Like you guys remember they were having that same discussion back then. Like, this isn't fair. The West is loaded and da-da-da-da. Like, man, it'll balance out, man. Like, just like back in the 80s, the East was dominant and the West was weak. It'll balance out. 20 years later is not balanced out. And it's not going to. Free agents go to the West. Like, they go to LA, they go to Phoenix, they go to Dallas, hell, they even go to San Antonio.
Those teams also draft better.
Then there's always one or two like really bad teams in the West that seem to get the top draft picks.
And it's Victor.
Like this ain't gonna change. I know they won't change. They want to eliminate conferences for the playoffs, but I mean, it kind of sucks. Like this is not going to change anytime soon. It's not gonna. Chicago's not going to be a free agent destination out of nowhere, and it's probably going to even get even worse once Vegas and Seattle get in the league.
I can't remember. That's a good point too. Yeah, especially Vegas. I can't remember when the narrative switched from, because for a long time on Locked On Kings, I'm sure you guys and we had these conversations for a while too. It was the Kings are trying to put themselves in a position with the next crop of teams to wait for the Warriors and the LeBron James Lakers and the whatever team Kevin Durant's on, that generation to take their exit, which is what they're happening right now. But it turns out 2/3 of the freaking conference, maybe 2/3 of the league, was waiting for the same thing. The Warriors had their dynasty, the Cavs had their dynasty in the East. And it felt like, okay, the Kings were trying to put themselves in a position to where, well, the Warriors declined, the Kings have ascended. The good news is that's happened. But the bad news is everybody else is ascending at the same time. That's what's crazy about the NBA is it's a great thing for Adam Silver, and it's a great thing for the league to have so many stars, and a great thing for fans of just basketball. But for a team like the Sacramento Kings, where this team has arguably the most talent they've ever had in just terms of pure basketball talent and athleticism, and they're still a couple rungs down the ladder of legitimately a championship program. It's just crazy.
And think about the just the unfortunate nature of, like I talked about, like things that are in people's control that keep the West on top. Well, there's things that are out of their control that has made the West even stronger, right? Like Minnesota gets Anthony Edwards, the Spurs get Wemby, the Mavericks get Luka, OKC gets Zion, Pelicans get Zion, OKC gets Shea. Like all of the next generation, all the players in the next generation
went west,
are in the West. None of them are in Toronto. So,
and then there's the Tatum,
and then Kawhi leaves Toronto to come to the West.
Right. Then there's the Tatum and Brown Celtics that I'm almost rooting for to win and have success, because one of the two of them leaves, they're coming to the West. They're not staying East.
Yeah.
After a lifetime in the East, LeBron comes West.
Unless, I mean, if Jaylen Brown wants to come to the Sacramento Kings, I ain't saying no to that.
Right.
That's like my dream player in Sacramento.
Yeah, we can make that happen.
I don't think we can.
Well,
he's also owed like $500 million.
I'll pay it.
Well, you got that kind of money.
Oh, come on.
You got the – stop it. Kimberly has it.
Who has marble floors?
They're not marble. They're I don't know what.
Is that in the old house or the new house?
The new one. It's not. Don't listen to him.
See what I'm saying?
It's not. I don't know what it is. I don't think it's that, though.
I'll just wait for my invite.
Oh, you're going to get it? Yeah. Well, no, I got to put stuff in the right place first. And then everybody can come over. We'll come back. Jake Fisher didn't really report anything on Mike Brown yesterday, but he kind of speculated based on evidence about what may go on with Mike Brown's contract negotiations with the Sacramento Kings. We'll talk about that with a man, Matt George, who's hanging out with us the rest of the hour. I'm JR right now. We're going to take our last commercial break, folks. We'll come back and we'll go all the way till the top of the hour here on Sacramento Sports Leader, ESPN 1320.
Let me ask you guys a question. Everybody here and the chatty house. What do you think happened at Stonehenge?
What is that?
What happened?
Stonehenge is
like how they got made?
The stone circles?
Yeah.
No, that's the one where the stones are on top of the stone.
Yeah. What do you mean?
What happened there?
A bunch of cavemen got bored and started stacking.
Really?
I don't know.
What do you think happened, Kenny? It seems like you got a theory.
The theory.
Okay, aliens.
That makes the most sense.
The guys.
Let's get into the pyramids then.
That makes the most sense.
Wasn't it the same guys, the same architects as the pyramids?
See, we don't know who did the pyramids either, how they did that.
No, there was I watched it. God, this is so stupid. I watched a documentary on how they did it, and it involved like a water-based elevator system. It's wild. I'll try and find it and send it to you guys, but it's like the engineering behind it is actually absurd that they figured out how to do that.
We watch Ancient Aliens a lot, and they talk about the pyramids, and they like kind of, I haven't seen your documentary, but they like do the people who believe it was aliens. They're like, all right, if it wasn't, this is how it would have to be done with manpower. And they just talk about it, the way they presented it is like, it's kind of far-fetched that
sure
men would have been able to do that.
I have such little comprehension of how any of that architecture works that I'll believe anything.
Yeah, I don't know. I really don't know. I don't think aliens can be just swept under the rug though. Stonehenge is great. Like you know, Stonehenge. This Stonehenge. Like, come on, man.
Are you a
What are we doing
conspiracy
here?
theory guy?
Not necessarily, but some of it, it's like we can barely do this stuff today. How are they doing it? You know, generations ago.
Are you the guy that actually thinks there's some crazy stuff in like Area 51?
Nah, I mean, I don't go that far.
Okay.
I don't know nothing about that.
I don't either.
I don't know nothing about
Kenny
it.
was
Are we
one
in
of
or
them
out on
people who
Bigfoot?
rushed.
Huh?
I said, are we in or out on Bigfoot?
Bigfoot ain't real.
You don't think there's some 8-foot hairy guy out there?
I mean,
Bigfoot ain't real.
yeah, I don't think so.
I think that is a man-made tall tale. It's my
And nobody ever caught a picture of Bigfoot in 4K.
bro. And that's what be killing me about. So like these little they be doing this now today with like it's not, I forgot the name of it. It's like unexplained something. So like it's current situations like, look, I saw a shadowy figure in my backyard. It's 2024. And I can't get no 4K footage. Everything's a little blurry. Everything's a little off to the side, and you miss. Like, stop, bro.
Do you remember that part of Hard Knocks this last year when Aaron Rodgers started talking about his alien story on Hard Knocks? Did you even watch Hard Knocks?
I'm not watching anything that involves Aaron Rodgers.
They devoted a whole segment of Hard Knocks, an episode, to Aaron Rodgers' alien story, and it was the exact same thing. It was like 2023, and it was blurry footage of something in the sky. I'm like, this is
Aaron Rodgers is the biggest fuck off on the planet.
I mean, I should have known the audience that I was asking that question to, but
yeah, no,
I do believe that there are some probably basically monsters in the ocean. Like,
the ocean is
like
crazy.
there's a statistic out there of how much of the ocean is actually completely unexplored. Like y'all get down that deep and that dark, there are 100% world-ending creatures down there.
The ocean is crazy. I think
to themselves.
I mean, I think they are aliens, quote unquote aliens. Like, I don't think we're the only living creatures in the galaxy.
Oh, I agree with that.
That's crazy. I just don't know if they hover over downtown Denver in a UFO. I don't know if they do all that, but I don't know if they built anything.
Big Jokic fans.
I don't know if they've come to Earth and built things or not. I don't know nothing about that, but I do think there are other living creatures in the galaxy. I do believe that.
I discovered an ocean phobia that I have, and it was when during my vacation last year on my cruises, we were in Cancun and we were just swimming, and I realized when I dove off the boat into not the ship, just a different boat, dove off the boat into the water, like just one of those pontoon boats that they have out there, and I realized everything was just dark blue and I couldn't see anything all around me. And while I was coming back up to the surface, I realized, and then I got to the surface and I'm up there and it's like land is right there, but I'm treading water and I realized like I have no idea what's around me and underneath me.
Yeah.
I'm good. Like,
yeah, no, the ocean is terrifying.
I'm good. And I never thought of it like that before because I was like, the ocean's great. I love to swim in the ocean. And then I realized what I'm in and what anything could be around me. And I'm like, okay, I'm good.
Yeah, I don't mess with the ocean at all.
My cousin's she was in the Navy. She just got out of the Navy, and one of the exercises she had to do was the man overboard exercise, where they take you out into the deep, deep, deep ocean, no land around you, and it's like an exercise where you and a bunch of the crew get out there, and you have to get in the ocean and just float on your back in the ocean for a period of time to simulate like if you fell out of the ship and they had to rescue you and stuff like that, and you're just free floating in open ocean. Absolutely not. No. And I've seen pictures.
Reason number 4,000, I didn't join the armed forces.
Absolutely not. Nah, thank you. Yeah, dead man's float, I think is what they call it. Yeah, absolutely not.
Well, he's come up with a new name for that.
I don't like that name. Jeez. Goodness.
I thought the whole point was to avoid being the dead man floating. The hell? Matt George of ABC 10 and the Locked On Kings podcast with us here in studio. As many are, they aren't in studio, but they're in the Chatty House, brought to you by Matthews Mattress, your locally owned and operated mattress retailer, where they got a massive Memorial Day sale going on right now, where you can get special 60-month special financing with no money down on approved credit with equal monthly payments required.
Man, look, I'm already set. I got to go to the location out in Elk Grove, right over there, by that Walmart off of Bruceville, and I got to get me one of these mattresses, man. I really do. Last night, because my 1-year-old every 4 a.m. or so decides it's time to get up, scream, yell, just so daddy can come get me, and then I can get a bottle and go back to sleep. I was like, man. And then she ends up in my bed, right? She ends up me in my wife's bed. I was like, we need a new, better mattress that's going to put her to sleep, and so I can get some beauty rest. And I was like, I got to go to Matthew's Mattress. I have to, because this can't keep going on this way.
MatthewsMattress.com. You can find out the location nearest you, and they'll help you put your baby to sleep, apparently. Like, I know they help put me to sleep.
I'm ready, man.
Because this week has been hell for your boy, and the only thing that's gone right are those hours that I'm getting to sleep, thanks to Matthew's Mattress being the only thing that went right on Saturday when I moved. They said, hey, you ordered this mattress on Thursday. We'll get it delivered to you by Saturday. No problem. Brought it in, got it all set up. You could order a mattress today and have it delivered at your house tonight. Go to MatthewsMattress.com right now. Find the location nearest you. Tell them D'Lo and Casey sent you, and ask them about that special 60-month special financing.
It's in the name too, but I'm a supporter. I'm a customer.
There we
Matthew's
go.
Mattress.
There we
I
go.
like it.
Yes, indeed.
I like it. I
felt like I had to. It's like a requirement.
Yeah, you gotta,
where do I go?
Gotta support.
There's only one place I can't go.
Yeah, gotta support the Matthews all over.
Come on, man. That's Matt. So stick together.
Matthew's Mattress, Matthew George, Matthew Dellavedova.
Deli.
Gotta let it ride, man.
Stop there.
Gotta let it rock. Jake Fisher wrote about Mike Brown yesterday. Again, it's not shade. He was talking about the coaching situations across the league, and he referenced Mike Brown, and he was talking about, Mike should be in for a pretty substantial, bump here. Like when you talk about what Mike has done in his coaching career, not just in his stint in Sacramento, but his coaching career, he deserves, upwards of, $9-10 million per year. Matt, you think this? I know you guys asked Monty about it at the exit interviews. Is this something you think gets done this offseason?
Yeah, Monty kind of hinted at, like, the conversations will happen.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and that's no surprise to anybody. And even Mike was asked about it, and Mike did the correct answer, basically saying, like, as of now, I'm under contract. I got a job to do. I'm focused on that. Those
and he is under contract next year too.
Right.
Like there's a weird, like, mutual opt out at the end of all of this, which has led people to believe, oh, maybe that year gets tossed
pretty much,
and they come up with a new deal this season.
But even then, the last year on a coach's contract might as well not exist. It's called a lame duck year.
Yeah.
Like, no coach wants to ever get to that year. Once you get to that year, it's either you got me, you keeping me or not, and let's move on. Let's get it done now, or let's just agree to part ways. I had Kyle Madsen on Locked On Kings last night, and at the very end of the podcast, he asked me, he goes, like, are you concerned at all about a Mike Brown extension not getting done? And without hesitation, I was like, absolutely not. Like, I think this, I have to be careful the way I say this, and I truly don't mean this in any kind of, like, hostile way. I don't think the Kings organization is stupid enough to get that wrong. Like, and I mean that 100%. Like, look at your history as an organization.
Mm-hmm.
Look at the history of the 16-year playoff drought and the revolving door of coaches. And then Mike Brown comes in and in his first year corrects that. Granted, other things had to go right as well. You made some right roster decisions. You made a big trade that ended up working out for you. Credit. You still needed a coach. You needed a leader. And Mike comes in, and not only does Mike come in and get you winning, Mike comes in his introductory press conference on day one, delivers a message not just to Kings fans and Kings media. I think delivers a message to the entire organization of every organization has a soul, and it only works if everybody buys in and does their job. And this is Mike coming in and goes, I know what this organization's been. I know what your reputation is. I'm taking this job. It changes, and I'm going to be a part of that change. Lo and behold, we see what's happened. So I don't have any fear or any concern at all of Mike not getting extended, because I think it's staring them in the face. It's like, you can't get this wrong. Like, you have to extend him. He absolutely deserves it. Your history in Sacramento plays a part in that. But even if you want to ignore that and just judge him based off of the 2 years here, I know what happened this season, but Mike Brown has proved right basically every single playoff game that's being played. Every single time there's a playoff game and the final score is 107-102 or 98-95. Mike Brown's being proved right. What Mike Brown has been saying and what he said all this season is I'm willing to take steps back offensively and a step back short term to start to build a foundation defensively. The foundation, by the way, which is what we saw the final third of the season. Like, that's how he believes he's going to win. That's how he believes you win in the NBA. He's won championships before, so he actually knows that. We don't here in Sacramento. And again, every single playoff game, there's a few that have gone to the 120s or high 1-teens, but almost every single playoff game, every single playoff game, he's being proven right. So he's the right guy for the job. He's saying the right things. He clearly has the respect of the locker room, the organization, the respect of the entire league. The Kings would be stupid not to get that deal done.
So do you think, like, do you believe, both of you guys can answer this, there's going to be like some good faith negotiating going on in here? Or do you think maybe Mike Brown takes advantage and Mike Brown's representation tries to take advantage of everything that you just spoke about and says, all right, I need that Coach Bud contract. I need that Monty Williams contract. And while I still think everybody would side with the coach because it doesn't go against your salary cap, all this other stuff. You got it, pay him that. That probably also isn't in line with, like, I don't want to say what the resume says he should be getting, but we know Coach Bud and Monty are outliers with their contract, $10, $11 million a year. That's not usually how it should go. Do you think that Mike is going to understand that and say, all right, I'm not going to hit you over the head with what I'm asking for, but I do want to be compensated fairly?
Yeah, market definitely dictates what you're asking for, right? So if this is the new status quo for coaches, then go get yours, Mike, right?
If I'm representing Mike, I'm pointing, Monty feels like the outlier for sure. That's desperate times call for desperate measures. But if I'm representing Mike Brown, I'm pointing right at Mike Budenholzer's contract. And it's those two, in terms of their career accomplishments, are nearly identical. With one glaring exception for Coach Bud. Mm-hmm. But win percentage...
That might be a $2 million exception.
Exactly. But what are we talking about? We're talking about a contract negotiation.
Mm-hmm. And that's what I asked. So you think there's going to be a negotiation or be like, you see what he got? I ain't going.
No, no, the league doesn't work. No, I don't think any walk of life works like that. That's why you have agents. It's so Mike doesn't have to do this with Monty and create bad feelings. The agent is there not only to get you the most money possible, put you in the best position, represent you, do all of that stuff, but it's also there to be a buffer to protect your relationship with your boss.
When you say good faith, Kenny, do you mean like in Mike being willing to take a discount or not being paid what market value is for a coach in the modern NBA to stay in Sacramento to give them a discount? Is that what you meant by good faith?
I'm kind of thinking about like what Damian just laid out. Like you could say a new market value is 10 mil. Like if you got this amount of wins and all this, that's the new market.
Yeah, and
value.
I'm representing Mike Brown. That's what I'm asking.
Yeah, and
if I'm Mike Brown, I'm saying the same thing.
And a negotiation would be like, no, we understand that, but hey,
no, it's a negotiation.
$8 million is like what we were thinking of. Like, can we work something out? Or is the representation like, no, you see what the market value is?
See, I think Mike can walk around and in these negotiations, like puff his chest out a little bit and go, who you gonna get instead?
And that's what I mean when I say take advantage of the situation.
And I don't mean.
But that's not taking advantage, in my opinion.
I think it is taking advantage a little bit because the Kings aren't. Matt just laid out all the reasons why they can't let him go. You know what I mean? Like
that's showing his worth, though. That's not taking advantage.
But that's because the Kings aren't the Clippers.
But what are you taking advantage of? Are you taking advantage of the money that Budenholzer and Williams got, or are you taking advantage of the Kings' history?
Both.
That's what I would take advantage of. It's like, look where you were and look where I got you immediately. You played a part in that, but you still need a leader. You still need a guy to do the job. I'm clearly that guy. You're not going to go back and get Adelman. and my coaching staff is being poached and is going to continue to be poached by the rest of the league. Jordy's gone. So you're not just making him the interim head coach and getting rid of me. Like who are you going to, if I'm Mike, I'm puffing out my chest of like, you're just now as an organization starting to become relevant again and starting to get to a point where you can hopefully consistently be good.
But let's be clear though, Mike doesn't do any of that.
Yes.
His agent does.
Sure.
His agent goes to the Kings and says, look at what my client did for you. I think that's a really, really important distinction. Look at what my client did for you. Look at where you were. Look at where you are now. I don't know. Like that's just part of the game.
Right. And that's where I said,
and it's his agent's job to know what Mike Budenholzer makes, to know what Steve Kerr makes, to know what Monty Williams makes, to know what every coach in the league makes, to know what JB Bickerstaff is about to probably lose his job at like $5 million per. Mike is a lot closer to Mike Budenholzer than JB Bickerstaff.
Right. So, and this is what and we're having a conversation here. I love Mike Brown. If it was my money, I'd give him the $10 million just because I like him.
Oh, you got it.
Right. Well, I definitely don't. I don't have no Damien marble floors, big screen TV. That's not me. But we're having a conversation here, right? We're having a conversation. And this is what I mean when I say a good faith negotiation, right? All the things that your agent is doing and saying, he's right in saying that. If I'm the Kings, I'm saying Coach Bud makes $10 million, $2 million extra because he has a championship that you don't have.
Yep.
I'm going to give you $8 million.
Yeah.
That's what I want to give you. And agent takes advantage. No. Do you know how ridiculous this franchise would look if you I said 10 and I'm not going off of that. And that's what I'm worried about. I hope it's a true understanding of the situation. Like quietly, he doesn't have to say this to the Kings, but agent, all right, Mike, look, maybe you can't get Budenholzer money because he's got the ring. He's got the ring. And we're going to say that together in this room so we understand it. I'm going to try and get you to 10.
Yeah.
But we got to understand that's the difference. But if they're both like, nah, the Kings would they're a joke if they let me go. We're not going any lower than 10.
See, to me,
that's what I'm kind of worried
about.
I
don't think that I certainly don't know. I'd be shocked if something like that happened. I think your other scenario is closer to reality.
I think Mike Brown is part of the list of money that it in my opinion is already spent, or if you want to be serious, it has to already be spent. And what I mean by that is, like, because this is a part of the question that Kyle threw out when we were talking about on the podcast is, Kyle has this scenario in his head, and I understand it completely, where Vivek or ownership or whoever's signing the checks or whatever, or they're hesitant. Like, I want to see if we can really truly get to where you're saying that we can be. I want to see if it was more than just a flash in the pan type thing. So I'm going to wait as long as I possibly can to get that payday until, like, I have no choice but to give it to you based off of your results on the court. And I have a problem with that mindset because I also could see it applied to the players. And that's where I have the biggest issue, because look at the state of the Western Conference. I know there's like TV money's coming in, the salary cap's going up and all that stuff. I have already accepted, and I think Mike or Monty McNair should already have Vivek primed, and he should already accept the fact that if this team wants to be serious and contend in the window that they're trying to contend in, which Monty McNair's own words said, we are built to win right now. Those are his words, not mine. Then Vivek's going to have to go into the luxury tax. Vivek's going to have to go into the pocketbooks, because you just paid Sabonis. Fox didn't agree to an extension so he could get an even bigger bag. You got Keegan coming up. You're trying to pay Malik Monk right now. Like, spending money is a requirement to build a good enough team, especially in the state of the Western Conference right now. If you're not willing to do that, you have to move on from Fox or Sabonis. That's the only route that or you have to say bye-bye to Keegan and bye to Malik. And then what are you with Fox, Sabonis, and a not good supporting cast, right? So there should already, in my opinion, it's easy to talk about when it's not my money, but there should already be an expectation, or at least a conversation hopefully has been had between Monty and Vivek of, hey, let's forecast this down the road. If we are where we want to get, or specifically if we, to get to where we want to go, the pocketbook has to come open. I'm not saying a blank check necessarily, but you're going to have to pay these guys to even put yourself in the conversation. You can't wait until you're firmly in the conversation and almost guaranteed to win it to then be willing to put the money on the table. And I think the same is said for Mike. Like, Mike is part of it. Give him the money now.
I agree. I mean, that's part of the game that you're trying to play here. If you want to be a winner and you want to say, if you're Vivek, and want to say you're so upset when you're not winning and all this other stuff, and be so mad and when you're a losing team.
Yeah.
If you want to be a winning team, this is part of the price.
And if I can also
literally,
I'll also preface everything that I just said, because I see some comments in the chatty house, just to be perfectly clear.
They're talking about Stonehenge in the chatty
That's
house.
true. They are talking about Stonehenge too, which I'm interested in that conversation as well.
Chatty house brought to you by Matthews Mattress.
Um,
One of a kind.
There's been no indication throughout Vivek's tenure here in Sacramento that he's not willing to spend the money needed.
Right.
Like that, he's had his issues, but that he's been consistent with. He'll spend money. He'll go. It might.
Yeah,
be
but
for
I'm
the
not
long-
going to overpay Shavano Heald
Yeah,
to
sure.
go win 29 games next year.
For
I'm not going to overpay Mo Harkless.
Yeah.
Also,
Harkless, we hardly knew you.
also we better like same thing too with like the Oakland A's situation, that and the A's coming to Sacramento. I know Vivek has dreams of MLB baseball in Sacramento too, in hopes of that. That can't play any part of how you run the Sacramento Kings either. Especially
I don't think
and
that's
I don't think it will, but people are going to naturally draw those comparisons. Imagine if Vivek is so focused financially on baseball that he takes a back seat with the kid. That's not going to happen. That shouldn't even be a scenario.
Yeah, I don't think that it is. Those are different bottom lines.
Sure.
Those are not the same thing.
And like you said though, Matt, I don't. We've never seen Vivek in this situation, so it's unfair to say, "Oh, he's not going to spend," because he never has. Well, like Damien said, those teams weren't worth going into the luxury tax for. This possibly is,
right?
And we'll see how he behaves now.
But I feel like you're going to have to go into it before you have the guarantee that it's going to work. Like that's just that's the reality of the NBA. And just because you're in the luxury tax doesn't mean you're stuck there forever.
Right.
If you go for it and it doesn't work, then you move on from Fox and you move on from Sabonis. You get back under that line and then you start over. Hopefully that doesn't happen. I'm not trying to speak that into existence, but just because you go into the luxury tax doesn't mean you're doomed to stay there forever.
You got to believe in your guys. You got to believe in what you're building. From the Domas, De'Aaron, Keegan, Malik aspect to the Mike Brown aspect. You've got to believe what you're building as an entire franchise. But the situation with Mike feels like a big part of it.
Yes.
Because, 48 wins to 46 wins isn't a drastic fall off. And if you want to if De'Aaron Fox wants to take the podium and say, we hit our free throws like we're supposed to, we're winning 4 or 5 more games, and you want to blame that on Mike Brown, it's a tough look, in my opinion. You could blame Mike for a lot of things. You could be frustrated with Mike for a lot of things. That, though, that's not one of them.
Yeah, I don't think anybody should look at the Kings and think it's a Mike Brown problem.
No, I chuckle because yesterday we had talked about this team, and Matt, I'll get your opinions on this, and talked about them like staying pat, running it back 2.0, right? And the possibility of that. And I've always said, I don't want them to. I want them to go get a big fish like a Brandon Ingram or something like that. But if it happens that they kind of run it back the same way, maybe a piece here or there, like a random piece, but essentially the starters are the same, I said that wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. And people who look at it as like, no, you just saw that and you made the play-in. I always say, well, that's where they ended up. That's not their ceiling. And it's not their floor either. Their floor might have been outside of the play-in, but that's just where they ended up. Like if they did the same thing again, that doesn't mean you're going to get the same result. I think this team has a ceiling. This team, as currently constituted, as a 5 seed, like might be their high, maybe a 4, you know what I mean? But it's ceiling of 5 or 6 seed. And, the new 2 9-game losing streak, you know what that is now? Well, if they would have just lost to 2 of the worst teams in basketball, and if they would have only blew 2 of their 20-point leads, they would have been a 6 seed. That's the new 2 9-game losing streak. But it is kind of true. Like,
well, you and Jesse are familiar with 9-game losing streaks.
No, lose streak over. I'm about to start cooking.
Well, it's not a streak. You won 1.
I said,
it was an impressive win.
The losing streak is over.
Oh, okay.
I'm about to start cooking.
No, it was an impressive win today.
I'm back.
Very good.
But no, that like, do you feel that way about like running the team back? Like, nah, we've seen how that is. That's not gonna get you where you want to go.
I think there's two sides of that coin because, like we talked about last week, I think Mike and Monty have already kind of prefaced us for that. And I'm not saying that they're committing to just running it back again, but Mike made it very, very clear. He said, I think this is we should have won 50, 51, 52 games. And the difference was, he mentioned injuries. He mentioned some of those bad losses. He mentioned some blowed leads. And whether it's the right thing to say or not, like, I understand how he and Monty and the Kings can look at this roster, especially if they believe, and I asked Mike about how sustainable he felt the defense was. If he feels the Kings can play 82 games of defense or a full season of defense the same way they played the final third of the season, I think they believe that if you run this roster back, exact same, and that's never going to happen, but let's say they just copied and pasted this roster to next season. I think a lot of Sacramento Kings fans would be concerned, frustrated. I think the Kings would be killed by it killed for it nationally. But if they play defense at the level that they were playing for an 82 game season from basically start to finish, that doesn't mean there's not going to be a bad game here or there because they're human. But like if the last third of the season was October to April, I understand why Mike and Monty might feel like, yeah, this is a 50-plus win team and we're better than we were last season. That being said, the other side of the coin is, you said your ceiling might be a 5th seed. Yeah, that's cool. That's better than what they finished this year. Mike Brown entered this season talking about contending for a championship. That's what he talked about coming into this year.
Yeah.
Aaron Fox said the same thing. Running this team back, they're not a championship caliber team.
Yeah.
Even if they play defense for a full 82 games, like, they lead the league in defense. I tell you right now, if the Kings led the league in defense with this roster, I still don't think they could win a championship, just because playoffs are different and like the star power and the offense are required. And I just don't think it's there. But you add a Brandon Ingram and you get 82 games of that defense, and Brandon Ingram hopefully buys into that. You have more length and size and athleticism, another scoring option. Maybe my ceiling is a 2nd seed now or the 3rd seed. I can win a title as a 2nd or 3rd seed in the Western Conference the way it is. I can look at the Dallas Mavericks. Dallas Mavericks could win a title as the 5th seed because they got 2 superstar offensive options and then a defensive buy-in from everybody else. Like, so if you're serious about contending, you got to make a move. If you're in it for the build, you can run it back and still feel pretty okay with it. I just don't think your words match up with your actions in that sense. And to me, this offseason is about getting your roster and your words on the same page, which is, we're trying to build this way. We're trying to win this way. We're trying to do this. Now get me the personnel where on paper and the eye test shows I can do the same thing.
Is that your move? Is that your upgrade?
I think it's the most obvious one at this point in time.
Brandon Ingram one?
Yeah. I'm making it very, very clear. I'm not even close to considering Keegan Murray involved in that deal whatsoever. And I don't think that
I don't think for Ingram you'd have to, because
I
think reasons we talked about. The
contract
isn't just
the thing
not
is
conducive to what
teams are looking for Brandon Ingram. I know he has his issues and he has his concerns, and the last year of his contract is part of that. Brandon Ingram, in terms of his measurements and his size and his scoring, is everything this Kings team needs. And every team wants more of those guys. That's why Keegan Murray is the one being asked about in every trade conversation, because they want more of those type of players. If Ingram is the one that's made available to you, I have my reservations and concerns about him. But if Ingram is the one made available to you, you have to aggressively pursue it, because I'm not in the Jimmy Butler idea. I'm not in those things. Like, if Ingram's available, you have to try. You have to go for it. But the difference between this offseason and I think past off seasons is Monty doesn't get a pass for trying anymore. It's either you get it done or you don't, but we're going to judge you if you don't get it done. There's no, Pascal, we didn't get the Pascal Siakam trade done because Pascal wasn't going to re-sign here. I understand the decision behind that and why you didn't want to take that risk, but you got to do something. You don't get the benefit of the doubt of, it's the same thing. Kyle brought this up with the San Francisco Giants. You don't get the benefit of, we tried to sign Shohei Ohtani. We tried. It's your job to get it done. It's your job to improve the roster. That's where I look at this summer. And if Brandon Ingram is that route, go for it.
Well, Farhan's just a flat out bum of a general manager. So that's
a big difference.
He's terrible. But yeah, I'm like stuck, on both sides. Like I'm stuck in the middle of this situation because I want them to be aggressive. I want Monty to go after it. I will actually, this is the flip side. RIP flip side.
Good for you.
This is the flip side of it. I also don't think he'll get the benefit of the doubt if he's ultra aggressive and it don't work. Like nobody, if he goes and gets Brandon Ingram, gives up whatever assets outside of Keegan Murray that he has to, Brandon Ingram plays 25 games and they don't make the playoffs again, nobody's going to be like, well, hey, we can live with that because you were aggressive. They'll be like, no, get this guy out of here. We missed the playoffs again. And that's the unfair nature of it all, right? You know what I'm saying? So, like, I understand waiting for the right moment. If you don't feel Brandon Ingram in a trade for him is the right moment, still keeping, your ace in the hole as far as your next move, keeping that there. I understand it, but I'm like everybody else, man. I want him to be aggressive. If Brandon Ingram is really, truly available and you have a real shot to get him, I'm saying roll the dice. And I probably would give Monty the benefit of the doubt if that didn't work, because I remember what I'm saying right now. I want you, by all means, go get him. Do what you got to do. And if it doesn't work out, I could say, man, sucks it didn't work out, but you took a chance. I give you a salute for even taking a chance.
But I
don't think a lot of people will do that, though.
He's already kind of done that. And he did that with the Tyrese Haliburton trade, which was his first ever draft pick as a general manager. Like, people forget, he didn't inherit Tyrese. He drafted Tyrese.
And the Chatty House brought up a great point, by the way, as it pertains to our earlier conversation. You forgot to include Tyrese Haliburton as a top 10 player of all time.
My bad. Well, I mean, it's either him or Tyler. I don't know.
Tyler's not a top 10 player of all time.
Who shows up tomorrow, Tyler or Tyrese?
Where's the game?
It's in Indiana.
Tyrese.
Like all the other role players on
Indiana. It's only
Indiana.
Tyler in New York.
Like all the others on Indiana.
This man called Tyrese a role player.
I didn't call him that.
Yes, you did.
I asked the question, is he?
Okay, that's fair. You asked if he was a role player.
Yeah, his role is the star of the team.
Is he really?
Who's the star?
Stars travel. Stars travel. Where was that game last?
Don't beat up Matt.
Where was that game last night? In OKC or in Dallas?
What?
It was in OKC or Dallas?
Oh, it was in Dallas last night.
No,
I'm sorry. It was OKC. That's
and Luka, a true star, showed up in OKC. That's what stars do.
So he pulled the numbers.
Okay.
And there's that and you got it. You see, you're not getting the whole story.
I really wish you tell the whole story here.
We were watching the game together during the KSFM show, and Casey was like, "Man, that adage about role players on the road and at home, that's real. Like, look at the way that these guys are playing on the road versus the way that they're playing at home." The Knicks Pacers, yeah. Well, the next day, this guy comes in and hits me with is Tyrese a role player? And then starts throwing out Tyrese's road and home stats. And it was like, well, damn. So I thought a fair question is Tyrese a role player? I thought does Tyrese play like a role player? And the numbers.
It's like me when I say
the numbers.
I'm not calling Draymond a scrub. I say he's playing like a scrub.
Right. That's right. I got that from the Book of Caraway right there. Chapter 3, verse 16. Thou shalt indirectly say a player sucks.
So I did for clarification purposes. I don't think Tyrese is a role player. I think he's better than that.
Yeah, but the numbers
are nasty. The home and road splits in these playoffs are nasty.
So I went back to Luka's first ever playoff series, which was against the Clippers in 2020. I didn't even realize this.
Crazy.
Yeah, that was the wrong one to look up.
Crazy.
His first game his first career playoff game at the Staples Center, 42 points, 9 assists.
That's the only game De'Aaron didn't beat, right?
Yeah,
wasn't De'Aaron's the second highest?
It was tied for second highest.
But he turned the ball over 11 times. So he's
that's Luka.
So he's a scrub.
That's par for the course.
Funny enough, his worst game was his first game at home in that series. He only had 13 points in game.
He's the
3.
anti-role player.
But then he had he had 43, 17, and 13 in game 4 at home.
crazy.
That dude's
my
crazy.
God.
He went crazy. They lost that game too, by the way.
Yeah, so maybe Luka and Tyrese aren't necessarily on the same page, but this is Tyrese's first
I think
playoffs.
the discussion is like if you want Tyrese to be a star, you got to talk about him like he's a star. You got to criticize him. You can praise him when he succeeds
I'm
for
for
sure.
that. I'm for
but you
that.
got to criticize him when we got tagged. I'm sure you saw it in Kevin O'Con man's tweet about Tyrese, and it's like, all right, you if as long as you cover him fairly, that's fine, because this has been going on a lot this season, and it was interesting watching the game. What did we just finish? 5? Watching the game 4 highlights versus the game 5 highlights. That was a different Tyrese Haliburton, man.
The energy was there.
And now the season's on the line.
And,
Yeah.
you know, he talking about this guy can't guard me and all this other stuff. And then you come
He doing the whole.
Yeah. Like, and then
all right, bro.
You come out in game 5 and you
can't disappear like that.
Coach Stan Van is like, yo, why are you passing the ball? Like, shoot the ball.
No, Stan Van said, why are you passing the ball in the air at the rim?
So, and the only pushback,
man's up there ready to finger roll. Oh, I'm going to go over here.
You did the Tyreek Evans?
The only pushback I would have about him, it being his first playoff, which I mentioned as well too, it is his first playoff, is his issues have been there since we met him.
Yeah.
And he said since life.
They've
always asked me,
from
you got to
him,
shoot the ball. You got to shoot
dad,
the ball.
They all said
forever.
the same
So
thing.
like I don't know if that's going to change in his second playoff appearance. This may be who Tyrese Haliburton is.
You're right. You're 100% right. I'm on board with almost everything you said until the role player part.
I said he's not a role player. I said he's better than a role. It was a way
to spark an hour long
discussion.
I love it. I love it.
But he's that's unacceptable. Like I don't know if I can call him a star player.
Well,
I don't know if he's a star.
One thing I do like about Tyrese, which what I think makes tonight's game interesting, is you go back to game.
Friday's game.
Jesus, that's right. Yeah. Thank you.
Yikes.
Game 1, like 6 points or 6 shot attempts or something ridiculous like that. I got to be better. I got to respond. Comes out. He's more aggressive, has a hell of a first half, kind of dies the second half, but point being, he knew he couldn't do that again and then did it. And I think we talked about this yesterday. He's probably just one of those guys who needs to be reminded over and over and over again, hey, Ty, don't shoot the ball 6 times tonight. Like in the tunnel, hey, Ty, let's go, baby. Don't shoot the ball 6 times tonight. Shoot it 20.
Here's the truth that we like really all that needs to be said in this scenario is put the Kings in the Pacers position right now, where the Kings are in the second round of the playoffs. And it's Domas who has that really big game and follows it up with a really crappy game. And he's getting dragged through the streets. But let's take it even a step further. If Fox did that,
come on, man.
Fox is getting torn to shreds.
Oh, Fox ain't ready.
Right. Which we're never worried about Fox only taking 6 shots, by the way, or 6 threes, by the way. But that's what we're talking about here is Tyrese has always kind of had this darling label, and he got that darling label because people did 360s after being wrong about him in the draft. And then they're like, oh, he's so good now. We make up for that and we praise him. And I love Tyrese. I'm rooting for Tyrese. I'm wishing him the absolute best because in addition to a great basketball player, as you guys know, he's a great dude. Yeah. Also, he's a WWE fan, so he's amazing in my book.
Yeah,
but he got hyped meeting Booker T. That was a good video.
That was a great video.
Shawn Michaels tweeted him on draft night. Do you remember that? He got drafted and Shawn Michaels tweeted him congratulations, and like Tyrese freaked out about it. I remember that because Jason Jones and I like geeked out about it. I'll find it.
I don't even think I knew that happened.
I didn't know that. Yeah.
I'll find it because Shawn Michaels tweeted him and he's like, "Oh my God, HBK, thank you so much for the love." It was really interesting.
That's what I would have said too. HBK.
But anyway, like
Brandon Nunez. What?
We all know how what?
Ooh.
That's well, yeah.
I don't know. Huh?
We all know how
Tyrese
Tyrese
is
is
supposed to
talked
say
about.
his name either. Jeez, they bought everybody from us. Jesus Christ!
They might not be allowed to say my name anymore.
Well, I heard
that's crazy. Yo, that's crazy.
Matt George is the boogeyman over there.
Matt George is Kendrick Lamar.
They not like us.
Matt, hey, I told you Matt was the one who alerted me. When you text me about that record, I didn't know it was out. I was trying to get stuff done. I, again, made the mistake of putting my phone down for 5 minutes. And I said, oh, Matt George just texted me. Kendrick might have just dropped the best track of all of them.
And you went,
what?
no.
I was like, did did you just hear? Like, I was confused. And then I did a quick search and took a listen. Was like, all right, still think Euphoria is better, but Matt might have been right because
this one's gonna
only one
last
of
the
those two
longest.
songs is the number one song in the country.
But also, what does it tell you that was the only track out of all of them that I texted you about because I was so excited about it because I could have a little fun little dance to it.
There you go. Well, I mean, hey,
It's like, it got me to move.
he made a bop.
He made,
He made a bop.
He made a club hit.
He did. The
Big club goer, man.
Not that I know.
Big-
Yeah, I don't know what the club is.
big club. Matt leaving little Artie at the house so we can go party. Man,
Sorry, honey. Going to Tiger.
going to the club with KC.
Come on, back up. Pull up on me. Man. Come on.
I think our show is over. Yep, our show is over. Thank you so much for being with us, Matt George. Thank you so much for hanging out with us.
Thanks, guys.
Make sure you check out the Locked On Kings podcast. And of course, Matt's fantastic work over on ABC 10. And we'll